So what we seem to talk about, you could say, really is very simple. It's too simple because we're not actually talking about anything. So this isn't a topic. We're not discussing something called non-duality. The suggestion, the very simple suggestion straight away that seems to be made here is that this is all there is. This is it. There's just what appears to be happening. So sitting on chairs, gathering together, a body, talking, listening is just what appears to be happening. And the suggestion is that this is boundless energy. This is boundless energy already. So it can't become this. It's not on a path to becoming this, because this is already what's happening in this room, apparently, right now, so to speak, is boundlessness. Words, vibrations, sounds, walls, floors, chairs, bodies. This is boundless energy. As I say, it's never going to become that, because it's actually already the case. And so this is freedom, if you like, is already this, as it is. It's never going to become more free, so to speak. So as a sort of story, we can tell a little story, if you like, about energy. So all there is energy, and it can and does seem to appear as anything and everything. It's not positive or negative. It seems to appear as everything. It is everything. And that can also seem to appear as this apparently contracted energy in the body. So energy is all there is boundless energy, but boundless energy can also seem to appear as an apparent contraction, which is of course only ever boundlessness appearing as that. But what can seem to happen is this can really seem to make it feel energetically as if there is an individual in this room right now, and that usually that is me. That I am in this room, I am sat on the chair, I am in the body, or of course even then it will go into I am awareness or something, or I am everything, or whatever, that there just is an I am that is located somewhere. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and talking about that or questions seeming to come out of that. But all that we seem to suggest here is that there is an actual individual is a complete and utter dream. It's a total illusion. There are no individuals. There is no such thing as a separate person. So there's just what appears to be happening. So there's just boundless energy. That's it. There is no individual in this room right now. That's what we seem to talk about here. So the suggestion simply is that there's just sitting. There's just speaking apparently happening. There's no one doing it. There's no one sitting. There's no one talking. And there's also no one listening. There's no one sat on the chair looking at a speaker, listening to what's being said. That is the dream. That I am sat here listening to Izzy speaking right now. It's a dream. There is nobody sat in this room. There is just what appears to be happening. So there is no actual dream to unfold. There is no individual to die, but it may simply be recognized that there is no individual to die. And that's what we seem to refer to as the apparent death of me or whatever. But really, the death of the individual is simply the recognition that there is no individual to begin with. And this is purely energetic. So what we share together here isn't to do with a story, it's not to do with knowing, it's not to do with a theory or an understanding. There can seem to be an energetic resonance with this type of message, with this type of communication that's beyond the words. It's got nothing to do with anyone. It's obviously because there is no one. And it's got nothing to do with actually the words or what we're sharing. There just seems to be an energetic exchange that, as I say, is beyond the words. And that seems to satisfy a deeper longing of feeling like a separate individual. Because when you really feel as if you're sat on that chair, there's something, it really feels like there's something missing. Energetically, there's something very dissatisfying about life or about me or about this, which is all, of course, the same apparent thing. So when you feel that you're sat there, ironically, by me feeling like I have a life, it seems to actually project and energetically create this illusion, this lived illusory sense that there is something missing from life. So the individual then goes searching, and obviously this isn't a choice because it's just what happens, what apparently happens. The individual then goes searching to fill what it feels is missing. And it will obviously do that through all sorts of means: spiritual, material, objects, people, activities, meetings like this, whatever. I mean, for a lot of people, meetings like this will just become another way that it feels it's actually going to satisfy that need or fill that hole. But actually what we suggest here is that there is no hole to fill, that there is something missing is an illusion. It's completely illusory. There's nothing missing in life, so to speak. There's just life appearing to happen, and it's just sitting in a room is whole and complete, indescribably whole and complete. Energetically, there's nothing missing. And this can just seem to be recognized, not by you, but just can seem to be recognized. And this whole lived sense of being separate, of there being something missing, of there being an energetic agitation, can just seem to collapse. But only apparently, of course, because it was never there to begin with. So that's what we seem to talk about. And there seem to be a lot of other things that can come up that we can also talk about. So the microphone's, yeah, there, just to pick up the sound for the recording. And yeah, you can see what happens. And just to add, this seeking, this individual that feels that they're seeking, they're never going to find anything. This moment of finding something or life coming together, it does not exist. It's a complete and utter dream. And that may simply be recognized. So this isn't about plugging a hole. It's about recognizing there is no hole to plug. There's nothing missing to begin with. So all seeking is completely futile because it's apparently based on an energetic misassumption that something is missing to begin with.
Could you speak about the fear of death being seemingly perpetuating the illusion of death and life? So yeah, and becoming and it's really a projection that keeps the.
Yeah, well, it doesn't keep anything going, of course, because there's nothing to keep going in the first
energetically,
place.
I mean, the search, exactly,
Yeah, and in a funny way, the fear of death is actually very much the fear of this. This is death. Boundless aliveness. This is death, appearing as this. So there's no fear of death in the future. The individual who feels they are alive, of course, then if they feel I have a life, so they then fear their death. But actually their death is this. This is what will kill the individual. This.
When you say this is death, you mean this is the absence of someone who is going to die.
Which is as this already is.
Yeah, that's it. When you say this is death, it means this is already absence of a person who seems to ask the question.
Yeah, well, there's no understanding of what this is death means. This doesn't know what this is death means. This just is death. But you could also say it's life. They're the same thing, the same no thing. Yeah, but insofar as, yes, there's no one in it to live.
Yeah, because I have noticed that the fear of death from my very little childhood has kept me, was my, the pattern, the scenario that really kept me something away and very real. And yeah, it's stunning that I was afraid of something that I don't even know what it is, but it still kept this seeking energy alive more than any other energy of seeking, I could say, in this, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. So I was feeling something that I wanted to understand or to grasp, and it kept me, and it kept me. Yeah, the search was even more like savage, and yeah, it's. It feels like a trap. It's not a real trap, but it feels like a trap, survival mechanism, which is funny because it's about death. So.
Yeah, well, there's nothing that's seeking energy, the individual energy. All it's interested in is keeping itself alive. So it will go on seeking forever, literally forever, for infinity, eternity, because that's all there is timelessness. And it will continue seeking forever, but it will never find anything. But it's how it seems to apparently keep itself alive. Obviously, it's all a dream anyway. But there's nothing worse for the apparent separate individual than the unknown, because it is the known. It lives in the known. It lives in the real. And so for the individual, the unknown is death. And death is the unknown, the ultimate unknown. It's the only thing the individual cannot fathom is my own death. I know what this is, I know what that is, I know who I am, I know who you are, but I don't know what death is. And there's this kind of simultaneous like obsession and fascination with it, but also this terror and fear and avoidance. And so this push-pull can kind of, yeah.
You have said that this can kill the person. What do you mean by that? How can then all this is a killer somehow?
In a way, yeah, you could say so, yeah. Yeah, because this is boundlessness. So it won't actually kill anyone because, of course, there is no one to begin with. Yeah. But no one can be alive in this. Boundlessness does not even recognize anyone. It doesn't know you because there is no you. There is just boundlessness. So there can be all sorts of energetic things that can seem to unfold. And this apparently contracted energy can seem to just collapse into the whole. So in that way, it kills you or the sense that you had of yourself. It swallows you up completely. And then there's just the whole.
But you can't experience that. You will never experience.
Well, there is no you to experience it. It may just be what apparently unfolds energetically. But there's already no you in there who could have an experience of this even, this conversation, let alone an apparent unfolding. Yeah, experience is a dream.
It's a complete dream.
Yeah. And the apparent death of the individual is the end of what I felt was my experience, which is completely unfathomable. How it then is for there to be an apparent human body, apparently happening without an experience of this happening, it's indescribable, completely indescribable. Because there would need to be an experience to describe, or for an experiencer to describe the experience. And those things just completely evaporate. And then there's just this without any experience or awareness of it.
Would you say the root of all fears that the individual has is ultimately the fear of death?
I mean,
Of not existing?
ultimately, yes, you could say so, yeah, of course. Everything seems to be driven by this existential anxiety for the individual of not being there. Yeah. I mean, the reason I hesitate is because, of course, there is no one already, and fears can seem to happen. Fear just seems to be what apparently happens in the human organism. It just seems to be part of life, you could say. Just the emotional range of the body seems to include fear. But when you feel like an individual, there's kind of an extra layer, an artificial layer that's added on to fear even. This other fear of me and my life and having to defend and protect my life. So then that fear can seem to arise, and fear is very alive and boundless like everything, as an apparent emotion or energy. But ultimately there seems to be this real existentially life-threatening thing that comes in when you feel that you are in here, because even then fear itself is absolutely terrifying, or anything. Joy, pain, the boundlessness of it all is terrifying for the individual. Yeah. I mean, the irony is the individual lives this terrified life of not existing and it's terrified of dying, basically, and protects its life at all costs. And yet, of course, the wonderful irony is that it's already not there. There is already no life to protect. There is just life apparently happening. So it can't really be said that like anything is caused by the individual, because it's all a dream. Even the fear of me not being there, it's all a dream. The whole apparent world of the individual is completely dreamt. My birth, my death, the fear of dying, it's all a dream. Like, that's why when this seemed to unfold, or it can seem to unfold for people, there can seem to be a lot of fear that comes up with an energetic confrontation of my own absence. But in the end, it's over. And it A, didn't even happen, and B, it's just hopelessly over the top, so to speak, because there was no one to fear not having a life in the first place. All this sort of existential terror of falling into the void can seem terrifying at the time, of course, energetically, but in the end, the whole thing never happened.
But if it's a dream, who's dreaming?
No one.
But then how can it be a dream?
Well, it's not an actual dream.
It comes from nothing.
It is
I mean,
nothing, you could say.
Nothing explainable. So, and anything explainable. Yeah.
There is no actual dream. That's the thing. When we talk in this way, it can really make it then seem as if there's a dream that needs to collapse or be seen through. The dream is that there is a dream.
Yeah, there is an illusion of a dream.
Well, there's no illusion. There's no dream. There's just this.
Yeah.
There's just this. There's no dream.
But this, the sensation of being a human body and separate from this, that's a dream.
Exactly.
That's illusory.
Apparently.
Apparently. Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. If we really want to say, we can say that it's an apparent illusion that never happens.
Could write a book about that.
Yeah, it's a short one.
Lots of white pages. One introduction with the conclusion inside. Thanks, Izzy.
So even saying that the dreamer is the dream, the only dream, is already too far.
So it's already a
too-
dream.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no dreamer, there's no dream, there's no one dreaming. There's just this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like the body can sometimes get really exhausted with being a me, or like, not that it is me, but of sort of receiving the impact of the sense of me, you know?
Oh yeah, it's completely exhausting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, yeah. There's no one who's exhausted, but this apparent contraction on the body, yeah, it seems to be, it's a constant tension, really, feeling like an individual, constantly. Amazingly, even just by feeling that you have a life without even doing anything with that life, just by existing, it's an exhaustion. Because it's separation, it's duality. There's then me and the world, and that is a constant tension. It's the only tension, really, and the ultimate tension, yeah. So it seems when, obviously that's all then just a story, but when this sense of being someone collapses or is seen to have never been there, the body seems to finally be able to sort of breathe, and there's just an openness then. And then all these sorts of emotions that maybe have been held in the body for years and years and years, and all these tensions can then just seem to, it's just like a flowing tap then. There's nothing holding anything in anymore. So there may be whatever, crying, laughing, heat, tension, releasing, all these sorts of things energetically then just seem to come out the body.
But you see, you saying that kind of, it makes me want that.
Of course, yeah.
Which I know is impossible. So it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's looking for its own release in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the dilemma for the individual. Is it when you say looking for the release, that's exactly what it is actually doing, because the individual is this apparent contraction and it's longing for openness. That's what it's really longing for, boundless openness, boundless energy, boundless aliveness, in which all these things just seem to come out. But of course, the dilemma and the irony is that the individual, the apparent individual, is what's apparently keeping it bound. So it's only when the individual dies that that openness is seen. So it's a lose-lose is what I'm trying to say. Either you feel like you, and there's this binding and this tension and contraction and this longing for release, or there's a complete collapse of this contracted energy, and there is that openness and release and freedom, but there's no one who feels that they have it or is in it. So it's a complete lose-lose what we're talking about here. Basically, there's either me and I don't feel that I'm liberated, or there's liberation, but there's no me. So it's great.
Yeah. But would you say there is still like a kind of enjoyment, not necessarily like by someone, but just like, you know, a kind of pleasure in it by no one?
Well, I mean, pleasure in it, I think, yeah, I'd just say it's freedom for no one. It's just freedom for no one. Yeah. you could say there's a lightness, but then again, that's sort of in comparison to a heaviness, which there never was. It's just liberation, freedom. Yeah. It's indescribable. It's unconditional love. It's indescribable though. So because there is no one, there's no one who can describe it. And there's actually nothing to describe. How it actually is for us to be sat here, apparently sat here, and there to be an exchange and communication and talking with no actual individual in it is indescribable. Just a body sitting in a room chatting with one another is indescribable. Boundless energy, completely indescribable. So we can say it's freedom, it's liberation, it's unconditional love, it's wholeness, it's energy. But at the end of the day, how this actually is, right now, cannot be named or known or described. So all I can really say is there's just boundlessness, but there's no one who can enjoy that or take pleasure out of it, because it's just boundlessness. It's impersonal freedom.
But somehow I feel like there's a taste of that, like here. And it is impersonal, but it's like, it's ecstatic as well. It's like breathing for the first time, you know. It's like, so you've been suffocated, so like you're breathing again, and like it goes back. I wouldn't say it's like a pleasure or anything, but it's like there's definitely like a craving of that.
Of course, yeah, longing for that.
Yeah,
definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you described there really that's just a full-on aliveness. For there to be breathing, full-on breathing. For the individual, the body's sort of constricted. It's constantly constricted and restricted and contracted. And then there's just a which is actually full-on aliveness already, just appearing as a contraction, but it doesn't feel that way for the individual, obviously. But it is aliveness still. But what's longed for is a full-on, unrestricted, open aliveness, which is all there is. And yeah, if you want to say, there's a taste of freedom, but for no one. So, and some people say it's like an uncaused joy, but I think it makes it sound a bit too great, like, well, because it's everything. That, you know, it's pain also, it's suffering, it's difficulty, struggle. It's everything, fear. It's also love, it's passion, pleasure, it's just wholeness.
I said to you once that it came to me that the I exists at the cost of heaven, at the cost of wholeness. It's terrible to realize how it's goes. I mean, it seemingly unravels. I mean, or just unfolds.
Yeah, because the apparent problem isn't the me. It's my life is the issue. It's not the me or the ego or the separate self. It's my life.
Yeah, I know I am. And then we don't know anything else. We think and we want, but it doesn't. We crave.
Yeah, which is why it's such a joke, really, all of these sort of awareness kind of teachings to tell you how you can know you are. Because that's the root of the issue for the individual, is that you know that you are. Yeah.
And nobody can say no. If there's a sense of self, it's obvious.
No
That's
one
the
can
first.
say,
No, I don't. No, I am.
well, the thing is, there will never be the other way round.
That's it.
There will never be, for the individual, well, the thing is, I mean, this kind of goes down a bit of a rabbit hole with the whole awareness thing, because actually the individual never does know that it is, which is why that whole awareness thing can seem so difficult to work out, because you're sat there actually trying, someone's telling you how you can realize that you are, and you're thinking, well, I don't even know that I am, because no one knows that they are, because no one is. That's why all those teachings are so hard to grasp, because they're based on something that's not happening. It's impossible to know that you are, because you're not.
Yeah, but when there is a sense of awareness here, there is a knowing of itself. So undoubtedly, it never questions itself, its own existence. It feels real. You see what I mean? Like Jim would say, when there is self-awareness, the first thing I know is here I am. Here I am, and then I want to know more because it feels fulfilling. Well, it never really happens, right? Of course, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, so.
Then it's somehow the opposite from spirituality. Then in spirituality, you want to know that you are without objects. But I think you turn it around.
Exactly, yeah. It's actually that objects are without you.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
So you go to the basic.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, this is very basic. It's very simple, this. It's that there's just apparent objects, apparent things. There's just what apparently happens without you.
But for the person, there's a problem with happening then, because then I think what happens for me is not the same that happens for another person. What I see is not the same that sees another one. So this happening seems to be a personal thing. But so, like you say, in this sense, everything is this one happening, or that there are no differences or different perspectives.
Well, there apparently
in
are.
this happening.
There apparently are. There apparently will be a different perspective here and a different perspective there and a different perspective of all the apparent bodies in the room. In a very normal way. So in normal language, everyone will be having a different view of this. But that's just what apparently happens. It's not deeper than that. It's just as it appears on the surface.
That's what appears. These differences, these different views, are all apparently happening.
Exactly. Yeah, I sort of know what you're getting at. This sort of, if there's this is kind of this one, this one viewing itself through all these different. No,
it's not that.
It's a dream. Yeah, it's just very normal, apparent life. Different perspectives is what seems to happen for no one. There's no one in them.
Then it's simple.
Yeah, I've been trying to tell you that.
2 days.
But the objects without the me, this is where we can talk about appearance. Otherwise, they feel real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When there's a me subject, the object is real, and without the subject, the object is just there and nowhere, and then no solidity. This is where when there's a sense of self, we can just, say and pretend it's just apparent, but it seems real.
Oh yeah, you can't kid
You
yourself.
can't
Yeah,
fake, no.
exactly. Yeah, either
It
you
seems
feel
real.
that
Yeah, real
you
here.
are real and this is real,
Exactly.
or it's not like that.
That's it.
And there's a relaxation even in that for some people, because it's like, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's funny, when I come here in person to these events, there's always more of an energy of wanting to get something out of it. Sometimes a bit more than when I just watch like a video on YouTube, because of the efforts of like having moved like physically. But then it's like, but there is no point. So it's quite interesting.
No, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Well, it makes sense because it's sort of, I've put in effort to come here. So that's how the individual lives.
Yeah,
the more effort I put in, the more I should get out.
There must be a reason.
Exactly.
Like, for my coming here.
A point for me to come. There isn't, I'm afraid.
Great.
As much as I'd like to, yeah, I know. Shouldn't say too much because...
But at the same time, that's also kind of nice, you know? It's kind of like, oh, I don't need to get anything from this.
Oh yeah, it's totally freeing, yeah.
So it's like, it's both. But with the video, you can sort of pause and then leave if suddenly you have the urge to. And here it's interesting because if you have that urge to do so, I mean, you could technically, but you're sort of more confronted with that energy, which is like uncomfortable. So yeah, so it is different also.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the in-person meetings definitely are more alive, I would say, yeah. They're more, there's just seems to be more of a tangible aliveness to them. Even speaking, it's just much more alive with the energy being in the room compared to over a screen. And it can be much more confronting for people because, as you say, I mean, you could run, but yeah, it's much safer behind a screen. Talking about your death, but it's kind of it's sort of once removed in a way. But then you're sort of in the room, yeah, there's nowhere to hide.
Also nothing to fear.
Exactly, because there's nothing, which is this. But actually, nothing to fear is the biggest fear of them all, really, because it's sort of oblivion in that sense.
So you're saying like we want something to fear on some
Well,
level?
just the individual wants anything. It would take anything over nothing, because nothing is death. It's just nothing. This. That's why people would rather suffer, but at least feel like they are alive, than die.
Because like they're experiencing something.
Yeah. And that's why there can be this sort of indulgent quality to people's stories of their suffering, it seems. Because although it's a bad experience, I'd take a bad experience over no experience. And at least if there's a bad experience, there's hope of me having a good experience. But if you're telling me about the end of my experience, that's something else.
And that's also encouraged by everyone around you,
Yeah, of
because
course.
asking you questions, and it's like people want you to have a story also,
Mm.
you know. And sometimes when you don't, it's kind of like it's a bit awkward, you know.
Oh, can be very confronting for
Yeah.
people, yeah, if you don't match their energy in that way,
Yeah.
if you don't give them something back, because there's all these games being played by people. They're playing all these games of sort of, I give you something and then you give me something back. It's energetic. Like, it doesn't even always happen on a conscious level. It's just energetic. So it can be very confronting for people if you just nod along and just, yeah, whatever. They're not being fed then. You're not feeding them, which is kind of what happens in these meetings. The individual isn't being fed with another story that it can get its teeth into. Obviously, it will turn this into a story because that's what it has to do to survive. But really, it's not being fed. There is no individual being addressed here. And that can be the same sort of confrontation that you say when people find it uncomfortable on the street or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
or like in one's family, or
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Well, I mean, more so, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's amazing, really, that it's just people can't deal with nothing. It's the ultimate confrontation is nothing, which is actually all there is, though.
Yeah.
So they can't escape it either.
Yeah. And in some individuals, it explains why they just talk all the time. Like, I have quite a few people like that in my life, which just don't ever stop. It's their way to, I feel like, to not let like nothing pop its head, you know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, no, it seems that way, that people seem to find all sorts of things to try and fill this apparent emptiness. But the thing is, emptiness cannot be filled because emptiness is all there is. And trying to fill the emptiness is emptiness. So it doesn't matter, like it's not wrong, but it's just a totally futile exercise because whatever coping method has come in to try to fill this void is the void itself apparently happening. Which is why there's nothing wrong with seeking or addictions or whatever sort of things come in as a sort of individual method to find fulfillment, because that is just fulfillment itself appearing as that.
it's also kind of freeing to think that we can forget everything that you said or someone else said, and it wouldn't really change anything.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't really make a difference.
No.
Like, it's not something we have to.
No, there's nothing to work out here.
Yeah.
In the words or in anything, there's nothing to work out at all. So, you could sit there with headphones on and not hear a single word that's being said and it wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to happen. That's all we seem to talk about, is that nothing is going to ever happen. So that can be such a freedom when that's recognised, because most often people are like, well, screw the meeting then, I'm going to the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in being here.
Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox. I mean,
yeah, totally. The whole thing is a paradox, yeah. Well, this is the ultimate paradox, because this is nothing being everything.
it work? So you're just saying everything's okay. Is that right or
You
wrong?
could say so, yeah, but not for anyone.
Yeah.
But everything is just naturally okay as it is.
Just that small point, but yeah. One thing I kind of want to clear up, but you say it's just this. So you mean this wall, the
Yeah.
sky outside, the noise of the aeroplane.
Literally, yeah.
What about in my head? Sort of doubts or fears or irritations or whatever. That's it as well.
Of course.
Okay. And yesterday, like the idea of yesterday or that's time, I don't know. Or maybe I'm just getting.
Well, the
on top
idea
there.
you have of yesterday is just this, as an idea
Yeah.
of yesterday. There was no real yesterday. Yesterday didn't really happen. Just as there's no real this,
Yeah.
but there's just the appearance of whatever seems to happen. There's absolutely nothing you could say to me that I wouldn't return with, that's just this. All there is wholeness. All there is just what's happening. The only thing that's exclusively not real is an actual separate individual. Just does not exist at all.
But that's not a problem.
What isn't a problem?
Not having the individual being there is not a problem.
Well, there is no individual to be there or not be there. But the claim that I am an individual is not a problem. Nothing's a problem. There is no problem. But for the individual, everything feels like a problem.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels okay. It sort
Yeah.
of undulates, you know.
Yeah, it
Sometimes
can
things are
seem to be
fine,
like
some things
that,
are.
yeah.
I think I prefer the idea that it's just an energy, because my mind always tries to put everything to, you know, get up in increments of understanding with what you're saying, or my head feels a bit murky. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm not really getting it today. You know, maybe on YouTube I was more concentrated, but now it's just sort of, my head's a bit murky. But just to say that, really. Yeah.
Thanks, love.
The individual sense of individuality, in a way, will never accept there is no problem, because it lives on the edge of problems and
Exactly.
then solving them
Yeah.
next, and
Yeah, it literally feeds off of issues.
yeah.
And actually it needs problems to survive, which is why it can be so confronting, or it's such a dilemma for the individual, because it desperately longs to be free of problems, but without problems it is not. So it's kind of this toss up between dying, you do know?
And keep suffering. Exactly. It's hilarious, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it longs to die, but it's
Yeah.
what it's most terrified of. It longs to be free of problems, but when it's confronted with that energetically, it runs away. It cannot
Creates
deal
another
with it.
problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like this, if you want to say this is heaven already, this is freedom already, but that it's already freedom is a big issue for the individual, a big problem. Because what do I do? Well, you know, what do I do?
Well, the issue, it doesn't feel it's heaven, so it will chase for heaven. Because the feeling of missing something is obviously not it, you know? I mean, its own existence is the proof that it's not it. So it can't escape
And yet
it.
somewhere in the system,
Something
something
knows.
recognizes that this is it already.
Exactly, yeah. Sure.
Something without knowing, something knows what we're talking about here, that this is already freedom. But that can seem to really agitate that thing that feels like it is a separate person.
I think the organism, the body recognizes like better than the at least my mind, I mean the structured mind here. And then it can follow or not. Yeah. It's very organic.
Oh, totally, yeah. Completely raw,
Yeah.
organic, natural, authentic, this.
This, yeah. You
Yeah,
can't
it's not
even-
fluffy or frilly, it's just life
there's-
as it is, with no layers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing deeper, nothing before, nothing creating this, nothing after.
I like when they say, that, show me something else, you know? It's so simple, but yet this seeming machine goes on sometimes and then not.
Well, it's just this without a question.
Exactly.
So it's just a normal life, but there's no one asking a question of, what is this? Who am I?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It's just this. Like, it just, why can't a rug just be a rug? It just is for no one. There's no issue. But that's very confronting for the person because that is emptiness itself.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the idea or the concept of nothing? Because we use the word nothing and everything mixed, and I have some difficulty with using the word nothing because for me that's a human concept which has no meaning at all, and everything is also a human concept, but it means everything. So it's a bit of a paradox using nothing and everything.
Complete paradox, yeah.
Yes, but with everything you can imagine something or part of everything or little tiny bit of everything or everything is everything. With nothing, it's just a crazy idea which doesn't exist. Everything does exist. Or not? Am I completely mistaken?
Well, you're not mistaken. I know what you mean, but this is the thing. What you're talking about gets to the heart of the issue, the apparent issue for the individual, the heart of the paradox, which is that this is nothing being everything. This. And that cannot be understood. The mind just cannot go there. It just can't fathom this. At the same time, this is nothing being everything at the same time, indescribably simultaneously.
Why wouldn't you say everything is everything? Why does everything needs to be nothing?
Well, it doesn't need to be. It just is what seems to be happening. And there's no reason for that. This has no idea why that is or what this is. It's just what seems to happen is nothing being everything. There's no reason behind why that's said. And there's no knowledge here of what that means. Just what there seems to be a question and there seems to be a response that this is nothing being everything. It's all there is, and at the same time, it's nothing at all.
But the beautiful experiences of life, of being human, are nothing. So what's the point then?
Well, exactly. There is no point here for an individual. Yeah. What we're talking about here is complete and utter pointlessness. So this is not a message for the individual. It's not offering anything. And it's certainly not a romantic message for someone who feels they are someone who wants to have a great experience of life. We're talking about the end of the individual's life. And all that seems to be left is nothing being everything. And really, actually, that this is nothing is an indescribable beauty. That everything is nothing.
everything is an indescribable, beautiful thing. Everything, but nothing. I don't see the beauty in nothing. But maybe it's because I still think and as an individual, which is where when I open my eyes, when I hear noises, when I see the sun, when I feel another body, warmth of another body, you feel very human. And it brings beautiful things and joy and love, being a human. And the fear of death, I mean, the beauty of death, I would say, because without death you don't have life. So I have difficulty in seeing the apparent paradox between everything and nothing, and the fear of something which is nothing. I don't see that fear. But life is beautiful.
I have a question. I never see a difference between me, contracted energy, and concentration. Like, for example, a pilot in a plane sit on a chair and make a checklist before power off the plane, check if there is gas in there, etc. And is there a difference being concentrate, doing this, and being a me?
Well, no, because concentrating is just what seems to happen, but there's no one doing it. And so we can't compare anything to there not being a me, because there is no me.
Yeah, there is no me.
There's just piloting happening, checking happening.
Yeah.
There's already no one in it.
Yeah.
And concentrating is what seems to happen, but the no one is required for there to be concentration.
And could it be that this concentration, from this concentration emerge a sense of me, because I forget this, and after it's it could be an accident, and is still alive maybe, and why I'm done thinking about this before, etc., and the sense from.
But all that can seem to happen and does seem to happen. It doesn't mean there's a sense of me. It doesn't mean there is a me.
Yeah.
All those things can seem to happen. All of the phrases and the thoughts of, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Just because we use this word doesn't mean there is someone. What we're just talking about here is an embodied, energetic sense of there being somebody here. It's basically self-consciousness is what we're talking about, the illusion of self-consciousness. So it just seemed to be a very apparently normal human life happening with all of its ups and downs and whatever seems to happen. There's just no energetic sense of anything being reflected back on someone. So mistakes seem to happen, correcting mistakes, trying to be better, learning new things, concentrating. But there's just no energetic duality in it. There's no out there and in here. There's just what happens.
Yeah.
There's no ability to self-reflect in this energetic way. To be self-conscious is a dream.
Yeah. But I think it still exists.
Yeah, well, Okay. Well, we could argue all night about that, but all the suggestion here is that that is a dream. It already doesn't exist. There's already no self-consciousness. It's amazing, really, because when it feels real, it feels like it's the only thing there is. And then when it dies, it's seen that it was never there. That's the amazing thing. Like, if I look back, so to speak, at my whole life, there never was anyone. It's not that there was this self-consciousness and then it died. It's that it was recognized that there never was self-consciousness to begin with. It's amazing. It's, yeah. I mean, the thing with concentration and attention can start to get quite tricky for the individual because, I mean, I remember this, I used to do quite a lot of meditation practices actually that were about like attention and these different levels of attention and awareness and these different meditation, you know, all the like the jhanas and the levels of attention and and I suppose when you feel like an individual, you feel as if you are paying attention, and attention is like this tool, this spotlight that you can place on things, that I can place attention, you know, so in the example of the pilot, okay, I'll concentrate more on things, and this is fine, but it's all still part of that dream of being an individual. So there's no one, and when there's no one, there's just what happens, and there's no sense of sort of anything being salient or sticking out more than anything else. There's no sense of really paying attention to this tripod or paying attention to that body. There's no sense of really putting anything on it. But we would say, okay, I'll pay attention to that. But there's no lived sense of any attention being placed on anything, because there is no attention and there's nothing to place your attention on. There's just what happens. No, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, it's funny you say that actually, because I hadn't been on a flight in a while, and then I went on the plane, and there was this, it was just so obvious that this security I used to get of there being some sort of authority, of someone that really knows what they're doing, wasn't there anymore. Because there's no one, there's no authority, so anything can happen. Like, of course there's pilots and there's this apparent knowledge and this skill of flying a plane, but there's not really a sense anymore of there being a real individual in there who really knows what they're doing in a lived, in this energetic, knowing way that the person feels. And the person finds safety in that because it finds authority in that. That, you know, they really know what they're doing, so they'll look after me. No one knows. There is no one. And, you know, you could say there's not even anyone paying attention. The pilot's not, there's no pilot paying attention. There is just what happens. But it includes knowledge and skill and apparent attention for no one, but it gets confusing if we start to, yeah.
But somehow we know deep down that we don't know.
Yes, yeah.
So this is why we are, I mean, as a separate sense of here, located individual, we search for authority because we feel safe. I mean, most cases. Sometimes we reject it, but it's the same energy. I think it's just we want to feel safe, because at one point we know that we don't know. There's something that knows that we know nothing. We can't know anything, by the way. How can you know the carpet? I mean, just you don't know anything.
Exactly, and the attempt to
We are fear. This is the fear.
Yeah, and the attempt to find comfort in authority, as you say, because there's a safety in feeling that someone knows, someone's looking after us. No, they don't. There's no one.
Take care of me.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course, the biggest one people then look to is God. God would be the ultimate comforting authority for people. The whole thing vanishes.
Yeah, the father figures and whatever.
Yeah. There's no mother, there's no father, there's no boyfriend, girlfriend, sibling, friend, me. There's no one.
No relationship.
No
because
relationships.
There's no subject. So there's no other. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy to also to try to feel safe. Once it is seen that there's this search for safety because you always fear of everything, it's such a release but it's such an effort to keep maintaining this model and this energetical building upon our shoulders. I mean, up my shoulder. Yeah, it's exhausting. And it is felt only when it is seen that there's just all, it's made up in a way to feel secure.
Oh yeah, it really is a contracted energy. And it's by nature, it's tense, it's contracted. Yeah.
And just what Victor was saying, that's such a release then, that everything is just... And that it seems like the body is just lives more naturally, and it's more energized in a way. I mean, in this case, at least, it's much healthier and less contracted, less tensed, less tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally exhausting and frustrating endeavour because you're looking for something that does not exist.
From somewhere that doesn't exist either.
So how could that not be exhausting? Yeah, it's relentless.
Like in Greek mythology, Cephisus who goes with this big rock and then just again and again and forever.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and it's never ending. It will never end, but it may just be recognized that it never begun.
Yeah, it's like seen through, or it's like. But it's also funny that in some organisms it doesn't feel that's uncomfortable. Like, obviously, most of us here might feel that very uncomfortable and dissatisfying, but a lot of my friends just don't feel that. They are okay with life, and even though everything is, of course, there's problems and unsatisfactory, but not as as suffering as that. I don't know. It's just an observation.
No, it's interesting because different people seem to have different sensitivities, and often the people that come to these meetings tend to be more sensitive to this agitation of, you know, why is this not working? Something's wrong here, but also it can't surely be this difficult. Like, and some bodies just don't seem to be that sensitive, as sensitive to that. There's still usually that sort of root dissatisfaction, but there doesn't seem to be that existential need to figure it all out. They'll be trying to figure it out in their own ways, but it seems a bit more subtle for some people, whereas for other people it seems a bit more extreme. And it doesn't matter, it's just how that sort of seeking energy can seem to play itself out. But often for those who are the most sensitive seem to be the ones that suffer the most, but also seem to be the ones that resonate with this the most. That just seems to be how it sort of goes. It's not a rule, but it just seems to be quite a common correlation.
Yeah, because maybe there's this feeling of existential angst that we feel that nothing will ever, mend or cure. So,
well, some people seem to be really sensitive to this deeper longing. You know, for others, it can just appear that they kind of get by with the car and the house and the kids, and it seems to sort of keep them going along for a little while. There's still a dissatisfaction in it, but it's a bit more, there's a bit more of a sort of, yeah, it's just, okay, sort of whatever. For others, it's terrifyingly empty. And what else is there, you know? So then that's often when people then turn to spirituality, because the material stuff isn't doing it. So then I turn inward or look for God or look for oneness or awareness or whatever as the next promise of. But there's no difference between seeking awareness and seeking money. Absolutely no difference.
same energy.
It's the same energy.
So you were mentioning, it's terribly frustrating because we're trying to get somewhere, but there's nowhere to get to. I would actually say, in my case, it's not so much trying to get somewhere, but 99% of the time is more trying to get away from like what's happening. So it's the reverse. Yeah.
It's the same thing though, actually, yeah. I mean, I know what you mean, but it's actually just the same energy. Trying to get somewhere else is running away from this. It's running to something else that's not this.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Right. Because the reason we're trying to get somewhere is we're dissatisfied with this.
Apparently,
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, it's just that for the individual, this is not freedom. So it goes looking for freedom. But also, I suppose, boundlessness is far too intense for the individual. It won't survive it. It can't cope with it. So there's an escapism sort of quality. It tries to escape what it's looking for. That's the apparent dilemma for the individual, because by seeking, you're constantly avoiding what you're actually longing for, which is this.
But when you have uncomfortable emotions or like energies, I feel like that's what you're trying to get away from. But are you saying that is like what I struggle to see sometimes is how the uncomfortable and painful things are that, you know?
Well, people often talk just about feeling overwhelmed, because when you feel that you are in there experiencing emotions and sensations and energies, then there's already two, and then you're having to negotiate them or deal with them so that they don't overwhelm you, so they don't flood the system. But really what we're talking about here is a complete flooding of the system, because it's the death of the one that feels it's on the receiving end of emotions, for example. That dies, and then there's just emotions, full on, boundless, 100% pain or pleasure or happiness or suffering or whatever is full on alive. There's no room, like the individual's kind of like a half-life or like an 80-20, or there's always a negotiation, there's always two things going on, it feels like, and then there's not. There's just 100% whatever's happening. But that's terrifying for the person because it can't deal with full-on pain. But you never will have to, because full-on pain is the absence of you.
Yeah, and I feel like the main way it will avoid that is like distraction, like mainly, which is so easy, right, to like indulge in.
Yeah, well, I suppose the suggestion we make here is that there's already no one in that. Like, there's just what happens, a seeking energy, looking for distractions. It's just what happens. There's already no one doing that. There's no one who needs to be distracted or who cannot deal with pain. There's just what happens, including an organism that's contracted and tense and cannot settle, you know, a highly charged nervous system that's... There's no one in that doing that. There's no one seeking. Seeking is just what happens. It's wholeness, seeking wholeness. And same with emotions. Wholeness is trying to escape wholeness.
Why? It's absurd. Like.
Yeah. Oh, it's a joke. That's what people say is the cosmic joke. That seeking freedom is freedom. Seeking. It's farcical completely for no one.
I mean, it's also quite a neat. I know it doesn't change anything, but it's quite neat to think about it, like in that way. That it's not. It's just doing its own thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. Yeah, it just plays itself out as it does. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the distractions. There's nothing wrong with the pain. There's nothing wrong with the addictions, with the trauma. No, there's nothing wrong with anything. It's just wholeness as it is. And it seems to play itself out as it does, including apparently coming to these meetings and maybe something energetically resonating. That's also just wholeness. That's why nothing happens. So when the apparent illusion of being me dies, nothing happens because it never was. It was always just wholeness to begin with, appearing as that. And then there's just wholeness no longer appearing as that.
There's so much responsibility to like be someone, and to like there's so many things to do. It's like not really, but like that we think.
Yeah, well, it feels like that. Yeah, I mean, but as an individual, you literally feel that you have the whole world on your shoulders. Yeah. Literally, like that's not an expression. That's how it actually feels.
And it just gets trapped in like thinking it just has to do things, like it has to complete. Oh, I don't know if it's wrong, but...
Well, it doesn't really get trapped in that. That's actually what it is. It is an energy that seeks. That's what it is. The individual is the seeker. So there's no such thing as an individual that doesn't seek. Whenever there's a sense of someone, there is seeking. That's just how the game seems to work. And when the seeking ends, the individual dies. So there's no one, there's no person that will ever find freedom, because the recognition of freedom is the end of the person. So you can't, in this way, you, as you feel yourself to be, the individual cannot have what it's looking for. It can't have it. It can seem to get very close, but it can never get there. It's intensely frustrating for that energy. Like you said earlier, it can taste it. Like there can be, people often say, like, and I could feel this too, they can really feel what we're talking about. Like, there's a really strong resonance, if you want to call this like freedom or home. But you'll never get there. The individual never can just bridge that gap, because it's illusory, but it's also impossible. Because home is all there is, with no one in it.
Mm. So it's not entirely right to say that it'll never be there, because, as you said, if it's already there, it's not so much that we'll never reach it, it's just, if it's all there is, it's just a wrong thought to think that we would be there.
Say that again.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just toying with the words here.
No, that's fine, yeah. I just didn't hear the first bit.
Oh, right. You're saying you can try and get there, or taste it, but we'll never get there.
Taste it, yeah.
But I'm saying, to say we'll never get there is also a bit misleading, because then you just after that you say that it's all there is.
Well, this whole thing is misleading, really. None of this makes sense to start with, but none of this makes sense. It's completely illogical.
Right, yeah.
But because there is no one who's not there already. This is just all there is. But when you feel like an individual, there's a sense of like resonating with this, but can't quite. And the thing is, it's actually not that you ever get there, it's just that you stop happening. And the attempt to get there dies. And then it turns out that there is all there is. So it's kind of, it's the other way round. When the seeker feels that the fulfillment is in the finding, but actually the fulfillment is in the end of the seeking.
There are small moments of that, you know, and like as a person, you know, we talk about glimpses and stuff. Like, would you say that's what it is? Like suddenly there's just not, it's not, the seeking just stops.
Yeah, we'd probably,
Or is that not even, yeah.
Well, a glimpse, really, what we'd call a glimpse is just, it seems that the illusion of there being someone isn't there anymore. And in the glimpse, it's clear that there never was anyone.
Yeah.
And there's just this in a glimpse, which is all there is. But then something can seem to come back and...
Quite disappointing.
What, coming back? The glimpse? Yeah, it's overrated, really. Actually, yeah. Well, it becomes a burden. It really does. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's just. No. Yeah, it's very underwhelming. But that's the stunning. That's why it's so gorgeous, because it's so ordinary. It is just sitting in a room. That is what is extraordinary. Is how ordinary this is. No awareness, no consciousness, no spiritual, mystical. It's so frighteningly ordinary. It's just a table. Nothing else. It's nothing deeper. It's just as it appears. But it's indescribably whole and complete, because it's all there is. So it's sort of, on the one hand, it's totally banal and ordinary, and on the other hand, it's completely mind-blowingly extraordinary at the same time.
But no one has to see that.
No one can see that, because there is no one.
So it's like it's like we're taking out all the importance out of this whole thing, you know?
But we're not taking it out, we're illuminating that it never had any to begin with.
Right. Yeah. But somehow, yeah, there is so much importance placed as a person. Like it's like this, like it becomes the only. It's like it's a bit of an obsession. But then,
what, on this message, you mean?
yeah, it can be.
I see.
I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
At least here,
Oh
it
yeah,
has
no,
been.
it does for a lot of people. Yeah, yeah.
But then the beautiful thing is, it's not really about the message, like because it's already everything. So it's like, as I said earlier, I could just completely forget about this message, and it would still be this message in a way.
Everything is this message, you could say, yeah. Going to the supermarket, buying a loaf of bread is this message.
Yeah. That's why this is so frustratingly hard to describe to anyone that's asking about it.
It's impossible, yeah. Because it's just this. Conversation at the bakery is this. Going to the beach is this. It's just what happens. Coming to a meeting is this. It's just at the beach, there might not be anyone saying it's this. And coming to a meeting, there seems to be someone saying it's this. But it doesn't matter if someone's saying it's this or if someone's talking about the rugby. That's just what's happening then. It's still boundless energy.
Yeah. There's a word that Kenneth Madden says, which every time he uses that word, I really like it. You know? And he says it's inescapable. And somehow, like, I just love it when he says it, because it's kind of like, it does something. It's like, oh, like, oh, great. That's so great, you know?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Because it's the ultimate, well, relaxation doesn't really touch it, but it's the end of seeking, because it's inescapable. What you're looking for, you cannot avoid. You can't, I mean, that's amazing. You can't miss. It is inescapable, what is longed for.
We could say, like the end of seeking. Is the end of seeking, like fulfillment, maybe? And also, we could say that fulfillment is seeking.
Appearing as
no,
seeking.
No difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to use that word, yeah.
Maybe it's more easy for me to think that because end, he don't know what it is, end of seeking, but seeking he know very well, so he seek and he's fulfilled. Or maybe it's
seeking is just fulfillment, appearing as seeking, and that may be recognized, and then seeking just seems to end.
Just for the anecdote, it's very futile, but in the Old Testament, Moses never comes into Holy Land after so many years, and then the rabbis all over they go around why and how, just because there's no one arriving. Because it's funny. How,
I see. Yeah.
It's obvious. Well, not the right word, but anyway.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly before we have a cup of tea that there's absolutely nothing wrong with anything, and there's nothing wrong with seeking. Seeking is not bad, it's just futile. But that also doesn't make it wrong. It's just what appears to happen, and there's no one in control of that who could stop it. It's just what seems to happen. All we just seem to suggest here is that there is nothing to find, and that seeking will never lead to finding, because it seems to be based upon an energetic misassumption, a misconception, energetically, that something has been missing, and there's nothing missing. So seeking is what seems to happen, but it's just whole and complete, appearing as seeking. It couldn't be any other way. Until maybe it is. But again. But yeah, we'll have a break now, I think. Yeah.